Today, I want to talk about histograms. I use histograms quite a bit, and it's because they tell a good story. Both a story that I can interpret for myself from the data, and also a story that is more easily communicated to the end user. So, what I've done here is I've just taken a geographic area and I have created histograms of several different features, and that's helpful because I can look at this at a glance. And let me it may be a little small on your screen, but I've got bath count distributions, bedroom, garages, pools, gross living area, lot size, and year built. And what is helpful about this is I can look at this straight away before I ever do a comp search. Maybe this is the subdivision. This particular one I just pulled up at random, and I don't actually know what the search criteria was. Sometimes I'll use maybe a wider geography like a zip code. To try to give an idea of what is there, and sometimes maybe if it's a larger subdivision, I might just do the subdivision and give an idea. So in this case, I have a feeling this is a larger subdivision. So if we look up at the gross living area, so let's focus on that for just a moment. And what you can see here is that the dotted line is where the subject falls in the distribution. So out of all this may be maybe 3 years, maybe 1 year of data, but it could be 3 years. And it will give me an idea of what the properties are like in the subdivision. And so I can see that when I separate them into these different bins, that the subject property falls in the largest bin. So that means that the subject property is going to be one of the largest homes in the subdivision. When I look down at lot size, I'll see the same thing. It's in one of the higher bins. So I'm going to be one of the largest homes in this subdivision, and I'm going to be on one of the largest lots. You can see that, um, the majority of the lots maybe fall. This is, maybe 6,000 to 8,000 square foot lots. And my subject is somewhere closer to a 10 to 11,000 square foot lot, and that's going to be really helpful for me to get an idea up front. Hey, I'm probably going to have uh, a little bit of trouble within my subdivision finding comparables of similar size. Probably what I'm going to find is a bunch of smaller properties, and that's going to be really helpful for me when I do my comp selection. It's also going to be helpful for the reader, for the end user. Uh, what's going to happen is I'm going to be going outside of the neighborhood for comparables in this case. And so when I have a histogram in here that kind of shows what is available in the neighborhood. Here's all the sales, and here's how they fall in terms of their attributes in different distributions. And so when we look at the frequency of sales in a certain size range, we can see, okay, the comp selection is going to be limited. So uh, the fact that I'm going to a different neighborhood, maybe to bracket the square footage, that becomes obvious to the end user that I needed to do that. Oh, I'm not ignoring anything. There's just not a lot there. If this were 6 years, I might say, well, there's only uh, 6 sales in the last 3 years that were really in this looks like a 4,500 to 4,800 square foot bin. So especially if I was the 4,800 square foot, I mean, chances of me having, uh, really some great comps that were the same size or especially larger is going to be unlikely. So this helps me to tell that story. Why did you go out of the neighborhood? Well, look at the histogram. You can see what was available, and the competitive properties for this particular subject property are going to be in maybe a neighboring subdivision. That's a reasonable substitute for the subject property because what's there is mostly smaller properties. Of course, that begs some other questions, right? So there's another layer that we can go even deeper with the analysis. And I can then start asking myself questions of possibly diminishing marginal utility. Well, might I expect the gross living area adjustment to be a little bit smaller relative to what it might be if I was appraising a maybe a 3,000 to 3,500 square foot property? Because I'm already kind of at the peak there. So that might inform what I might expect to see in the data, and maybe how I interpret. um uh, Maybe results from an analysis. Say I'm doing something like say I'm doing a regression analysis for this subdivision um, for gross living area. What I might expect to find is that whatever the regression result is, it's probably going to be too high. Um, Now that's a theory, that's a hypothesis, but that's helpful for me to have in place that I what I might expect to find, how I'm interpreting what the market is likely to be doing. Now, again, this may be a situation where the wider area, maybe that's a very common property. Maybe this particular subdivision is is full of homes that are too small for this market. Maybe the subject property isn't over improved. Maybe every property is a little under improved for the market area. Maybe this market's changed since these homes were built. But it gives me a way of framing how to talk about the subject property, how to analyze its features, and gives me a starting point both for me to start developing some initial impressions, for me to uh, be informed about maybe comparable selection criteria, and it gives me an opportunity to point the reader to this visual to help explain um, maybe why the gross living area adjustment may seem to be toward the bottom of the range for what might be expected, and why a comp is located further away than the reviewer might think is necessary. Well, you can show them exactly why it was necessary. So just wanted to point out that as maybe something to consider. It's just a really good storytelling technique, and so I offer that. If you're not uh, using these in your reports already, maybe give it a shot and see if you find it helpful. This was very easy to create. I've got a custom GPT that I just drop the data set in, and the histograms come right out once I tell it where the subject property falls within the distribution, and very simple to create. So let me know, are you using histograms already? And is this something that you would consider?